Good afternoon. It's nice to see a few familiar faces in the room today. My name's Tim Swinton. I'm from ERM Power, but I've been knocking around the energy efficiency space for a little while now. And I'm going to be talking today a little bit about how we can engage SMEs and sort of some sharing some learning experiences in terms of our journey to date. So when I was thinking about how to frame this, this question, I looked at the process that we normally look at when we are undertaking a program. So there's normally, some pretty well-defined steps that we go about when we look at undertaking a program that's directed at a specific market. So we think about who we're going to go and recruit and who it's specifically for, and we think about actually how we're going to go and recruit our numbers. But when we start to talk about SMEs, for example, that's why one of the key things that we had or traditionally struggle with in terms of actually defining who a SME is. So from an energy retailer's perspective, that's defined by energy output. From a government perspective or from a funder's perspective, that may well be defined by the number of employees. We get to start talking about FTEs. There's a debate whether it's 1 to 10, 1 to 50. So again, we come through that quandary of we're not exactly sure about which target market we're looking at. So once we've come across that problem and tackled that one, then we work into perhaps sectors and identify or identify a target market. So that may be the hospitality sector, or it might be restaurants, or it might be cafes. But what we find is that when we start to dig into SMEs, we find that for a cafe, for example, this seems like a really well-defined target group to go and recruit. But a cafe may be manied and varied in terms of its size and complexity of operations. So I'm talking about the coffee cart that's on the side of the street, ranging right up to a cafe that might have 60 or 70 tables. So in terms of their energy intensity and staffing and complexity of operations, just within one particular sector, we're talking about a number of different ways to go about recruiting that business and engaging them and running activities that's targeted at them. So, for example, if we've got a sole operator, the chances of my team going out and engaging in any genuine way during their operational hours is little to none. In terms of complexity, when we look at a bigger operation, these sorts of businesses are, looking to try and manage staff and bills and stock and energy, unfortunately, while it's an expensive topic, isn't necessarily rating on top of their priorities at that point in time. So I think that in terms of working through that, I've got a slide just to summarise a few things next, which I'll just talk through quickly in terms of time. So the main programs that are run in the market really focus on the second step, which is raising awareness, building information, informing and educating a SME or whatever particular audience it is. And I believe that most of our funding and most of the resources really get burrowed into here. And to steal some concepts out of this morning's session, I think that they've really summarised the points in terms of saying, I don't think we need to provide more information. We need to do a better job of providing that information in a way that's relevant to the specific target audience. Once we've run through those couple of steps, there's many different methods in terms of providing information and education. We normally go in and have a look at some businesses. So we quantify what the energy efficiency opportunity or energy productivity opportunity is in that business place. So how do we achieve that over scale? So for example, in Queensland, there's 414,000 small businesses. So how can we go in and cost effectively understand what their energy consumption is? How can we provide practical tips for really time poor people? This is clearly a really difficult challenge for us to try and deliver in a method that has a really low cost to serve basis. So those three steps in itself are what I describe what a normal program is. So government funding traditionally starts with those three steps and then the funding stops. So essentially we've gone out there, we've engaged a group of participants, we've got them excited, we've identified all the different opportunities, we've ranked them, we've told them what the energy saving opportunity is, and this is where the inertia starts. From the SME's perspective, I've got a report there that as soon as one of my team leaders has left, quite often either gets filed away or put on the top of the stack of bills and it's either never visited again or is visited at a time when they have spare time, which might be next month, in 6 months' times. We've had an example there where people have come back to us 9 months and 12 months later with really basic questions because that's the next time they had an availability to go and read those reports. So I've sort of identified a gap here in terms of saying, on one side of the agenda here, we've got lots of programs that are running this information and awareness strategy. On the other side of the market, we've got industry. So industry can provide services, products and skills that we can connect up to SMEs that need their assistance. However, how do we bring those two entities together? That's the key challenge here, because when we talk about a couple of key concepts like trust and mandate, and who does the SME actually turn to seek that assistance and to assist them in behaviour change and some of those sorts of topics, this is really where we get into a grey area. So there's concern about going out and procuring into industry. What is the light fitting that I need? How do I go about doing that? How do I go about actually creating the engagement? When we think about and contextualise that into their daily journey, they don't have time and the technical knowledge to do that. So there's a gap here in terms of where I think we really need to, as an industry, think through how we support that information section into action. And then the last step here is about measurement and verification, or measurement and evaluation. So the question here when we look at some of these sectors is we're looking for winners. We want to engage SMEs, we want to have a headline where we've reduced lots of energy, we've had a low cost to serve, we've engaged lots of numbers. I think that sometimes in terms of the programs we're using the wrong sorts of metrics here to measure the success of some of these particular programs. So in a nutshell, what are some of the key takeaways? It's a heterogeneous sector. There's no specific silver bullets. So we can't go out and just engage cafes, for example. Our target market is really time poor. In terms of communication, we need to make sure that we're really focusing on simplicity, and we want to make sure that we're avoiding being overly technical in terms of that particular area. Another theme that was mentioned this morning was that wraparound proposition, or what I've described in my presentation there as an integrated solution. So that is using data, using the information, using systems and face-to-face contact as an integrated solution to help participants move through the journey. So that really requires the most important thing of the whole proposition, which is trusted partners. So we need to make sure that when we're recruiting, as well as engaging SMEs, that we're viewed as a trusted partner that's helping them through the journey rather as someone that's just selling them product or service. Thank you.